Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We ask that you please find your seats. I have about 5:10, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Welcome. There's a lot of seats towards the front here, so please don't be shy. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for a community meeting regarding the CalTrans properties in South Pasadena. My name is Dominica Megradician, and I'm the Deputy City Manager. It was important to us, as we heard our community members, to bring the community together around this issue. Community members want to know what's going on, you want to be heard, and we want to make sure that you have the information, access, and know what's going on regarding to the implementation of SB 381. I'd like to go over some housekeeping and establish a code of conduct and decorum for tonight's community meeting. As to housekeeping items, restrooms are in the lobby, and for any other matters, please find a staff member for further assistance. We have a sign-up sheet for anyone who wants to be added to a distribution list for updates and to be notified of future community meetings and sessions, just like this one. We have some updates and information to share with you tonight at the top of the meeting, but we want a majority of the meeting to be an input session. That being said, if you have a specific question that needs follow-up or you need an answer, please see our staff. We have follow-up cards, about a half sheet of paper for you to fill out, and the appropriate folks will follow up with you following this meeting. As to a code of conduct for tonight's meeting, we understand that there's a lot of different opinions in the room, lots of input and emotions, and we may not all agree, and that's okay. We will absolutely ask everyone to be polite and respectful of each other. Please only speak when it's your turn, and everyone will have an opportunity to be heard. It's important that we give each other the space to express your sentiments and opinions and that you feel safe to do so. Anyone not following the decorum and code of conduct tonight will be asked to leave. We have 2 hours together tonight, but please note that this is the starting point of the conversation and that we anticipate hosting more of these sessions in the near future. At this point, I'd like to make some quick introductions so that you know who's in the room and which partner agencies are represented tonight. We have the SB 381 Council Ad Hoc Implementation Committee members, Mayor Pro Tem John Primith, and Councilmember Jack Donovan. From CalTrans, we have Edward Francis, Deputy District Director, Division of Right-of-Way, and Lauren Wonders, Chief of Media Relations and Public Affairs for District 7. From Senator Portantino's office, we have Christy Lopez, District Representative, Los Angeles County Supervisor Barger's office, David Perry, Transportation Deputy, Tyler Cash, Homeless Services Deputy, and Savannah Moore, Field Representative. From Assemblymember Holden's office, we have Ann Higginbottom, Lead Field Representative and Housing Policy Deputy. Thank you. Assemblymember Fong's office, Cassandra Carmona, Field Representative. And from city staff, City Manager Armin A. Chaparian, executive team members, and members of staff across all of the city departments. Now I'd like to dispel some rumors. The city has not made any policy or other decisions regarding the properties. Tenants are not being evicted, and no one is being pushed out. The city is following the law. SB 381 is current law, and we are implementing it. All decisions are and will be made in a public setting. The council meetings are the established and recognized place where this business is conducted. The city is in its due diligence period in conducting inspections of the unoccupied properties and gathering scope of costs and repairs. This information, as well as continuing community input, will all be taken into consideration by the City Council ahead of making any policy decisions. And finally, to set the record straight, We have not partnered with any sober living, halfway house, transitional housing, post-prison, homeless shelter, or any other provider. There is no conspiracy as to why this community meeting is being held off-site from City Hall and the council chambers. As you heard at the council meeting last night, we wanted to hold this community meeting ahead of the holiday season and in the midst of the election season. And thank you so much for the South Pasadena Masonic Lodge for being a partner, for being a great host, and for offering this facility free of charge so that we could accommodate all of you tonight. Thank you. I hope this sets a tone for our discussion tonight. At this time, I'd like to hand the mic over to our implementation committee members to address you all. Mayor Pro Tem Permith.
Good evening. I have no prepared remarks, but I want you to know that I've been focused on this issue for about a year and a half, at least, intensively as 381 went through the legislative process as it came out and looking at all the options. The City Council has made one substantive decision, and that is for 20 houses that are vacant, not tenant occupied, vacant. They've been offered to the city, and the city has indicated it wishes to buy. We don't have contracts yet, but we anticipate getting those. This is all part of a regulatory sale process. That's the one decision the council has made. The alternative to buying would be to let CalTrans sell it to the County of Los Angeles, and those are the two options we were presented with. So we've already made one decision, that's to buy local. And then the disposition of those homes, that's what we are developing options for. Jack and I are here as the exploratory committee, helping listen, provide input, give a little direction to staff, and then the full council will receive a full bevy of options. And this tonight is one of the really critical times when we're going to be listening. So that's my function here. Oftentimes you'll see me at a council meeting, I'm not reacting to public comment. I will be reacting to public comment here because I do have important information that I really want you to know about. So if it's during the meeting you see me react a certain way, come talk to me, meet with me in private. I'd love to be able to tell you the whole process. It's complicated. This is a very difficult way to sell housing through the government, right? With lots of regulation. We have to get through it. We have to create consensus. We have opposing opinions. We're going to get through this. Thank you so much for sharing from your heart. Please know that I believe everyone here, and I know quite a few of you, I believe you are acting in good faith, and I really do want to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Jack, do you have anything to share? Councilmember Donovan.
Okay, like John, I did not have a prepared statement, but I just want to say hi to the people that came here tonight, and thank you. And to echo what John said, if you have specific questions that you feel were not answered tonight, I can be reached through the city line. My cards all have my home phone number, my cell number. I carry it around with me, and I will get you the answer. Okay? And as I probably mentioned last night, one thing that has bothered me is what I'll call the myths. And there's just too many of them going around. And we're having this community meeting and would like to correct a couple of those myths. Okay? So, and we will answer your questions either here or get a hold of John or myself over the phone or in an email. Thank you. Let's have a good meeting.
Thank you, Council Member. I would be remiss to not specifically introduce a couple members of our team who you'll be hearing from tonight. We have our Community Development Director, Angelica Frostolupo, and a team member, Grant Henninger, who will be helping to facilitate and provide some updates. So as I mentioned, we have some updates for you tonight, and then we want to switch over and really hear from the community. There's materials at the check-in table outside, and if those run out, all of the information on the city's website has been updated. If you see the QR code on any of the check-in materials around the building, That's that box that has like a little staticky look to it. If you scan that with your camera, it goes to that updated page that includes frequently asked questions for the city, frequently asked questions for the state, for CalTrans, next steps, timelines, all of the information, and we will continue keeping that current. So with that, I'd like to switch over to our city updates and welcome Grant Henninger.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. And welcome everybody, thank you for being here tonight. I will give you an update from the city's perspective. I'm going to be moving around a little bit so I can hit the enter button on the computer. You can do that way? Okay, thank you. No, I'm good. Okay, I'm not going to be moving around. I'm going to stand right here. Thank you. My update is going to cover a couple different things. I'm going to first talk about where we are in the SB 381 implementation process and what the timeline has been and will be. And then I'm going to really focus on fleshing out some of the things that the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned about the process and the decisions that the city still needs to make to go forward. And then I'm going to finish up by talking about what Councilmember Donovan talked about regarding the myths that we've been hearing about the SB 381 process and what the truths are behind those myths. So we've been working on this for a long time now. It's been well over a year, and over the past, more than a year, we've had a number of public comment or public meetings where the SB 381 process has been mentioned. So up here on the screen, you can see we have 2 full slides of what the process has been up through now. And if you don't have one of these handouts that has all of these slides, I believe there are some up in front, and so you can read all the details. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but I really want to point out that those ones in blue up there, the dates in blue, have been the public meetings, and there's been 6 of them. So on average, we've had almost one every other month for this past year as we've gone through this process. Right now, this week and over the past few weeks and over the coming few weeks, we've been working on gathering the due diligence that the city needs in order to make decisions based on facts on what to do with these homes. We've been doing the property inspections that are needed. As I'm sure many of you know, these unoccupied homes have been unoccupied for a considerable amount of time in a lot of cases. And they have deteriorated as people haven't been living there. And we need to know what the condition of those homes are before we can make any real decisions and understand what the costs are to rehabilitate the homes, and just more information is better for the city to make these decisions. So that's what we're doing right now. We're gathering that additional information before we make the decisions. So I know that one of the questions that many people have is, why are we going through this SB 381 process? We already had something in place. We had the Roberti Act in place that talked about how to transfer these homes from CalTrans to other owners. And we made a couple of changes to the Roberti Act. The basic structure of the Roberti Act is in place, but we did a couple of things through SB 381. The first and most important thing is we moved existing tenants, regardless of their income or qualification status, ahead of HREs and the city. This ensures that existing tenants, regardless of their income, can remain in these homes. That was an incredibly important thing that SB 381 was able to accomplish. The second thing it accomplished was that it put the city ahead of HREs and the County of LA. So it ensures that the city can have local control and make that first decision on whether or not to purchase the unoccupied homes or to purchase homes that the current tenants aren't going to purchase themselves. And that way we maintain local control. The city gets to decide what happens. And then if the city decides not to purchase them, then CalTrans is able to offer them to the County of LA and then to HREs, and then there's a whole waterfall that comes after the city. But at that point, the city has lost really its control over what happens to these homes. So those were the valuable things that SB 381 did for the residents of those homes and for the community as a whole. So I mentioned that we're going to have to talk about what comes next. What are the decisions that we need to make? So first I want to talk about the unoccupied, non-historic properties. There's a slightly different process that needs to happen for the historic properties versus the non-historic properties. So, as I've already mentioned, the first decision that needs to be made is whether or not the city wants to buy these homes from CalTrans. CalTrans has sent a letter to the city saying, are you interested? The city has so far responded, yes, we're interested. The next step in that is for CalTrans to send a purchase and sale agreement. There will be another decision the city needs to make on whether or not to execute those purchase and sale agreements. So I know that the mayor pro tem has said, the city has said that they want to, purchase them. And the council has made that declaration that they want to do that. There is still the option for the city to decide, never mind. We thought we wanted it. Now that we've seen the condition of the homes, now that we've run all the numbers on the financing, we've decided against it. That is still an option. And when, once CalTrans sends those purchase and sale agreements, then the city council will have to reaffirm that they want to purchase the homes and to execute the purchase and sale agreements. So before they get there, what are some of the decisions that need to be made? So the first is if the city purchases the homes, how does it want to then turn around and sell the homes or rent the homes? The city has the option of being the landlord. I will tell you, while the city council has not made up its mind about that, they've not made any declaration about that, I am pretty sure that that's not something the city is interested in doing. So how does the city want to turn around and sell them? Does the city want to sell them as a portfolio? All the homes to one entity, to a developer or to a community land trust to then, rent or sell to buyers? Or does the city want to do each transaction, to sell each home to an individual buyer and, kind of do 20 different transactions instead of just one? So that's the first decision. The second is whether the city wants to oversee the rehabilitation work of these homes or sell them as is. We don't know what the rehabilitation costs are yet. That's part of the information that we're trying to determine through a series of inspections of the homes. But that's going to be a decision that needs to be made. Who does that rehabilitation work? The third decision is, will the homes go to an affordable housing developer? There's a lot of great nonprofit affordable housing developers that would do good work and turn over the city's control at that point of these homes? Or does the city want to form a community land trust that would be managed by the local community, overseen by a local board, to maintain ownership of the homes, or at least the ground under the homes, and then sell the structures or rent out the properties from there? And the final decision, the final question that the city needs to answer is, what is the affordability level of these homes? Now, these are only the non-historic homes. SB 381 says that these have to go to lower income homeowners or lower income tenants. It doesn't allow the city to turn around and sell these properties to, at a market rate. The city can't turn around and sell these homes for $1 million each. They are limited to affordable for lower income tenants or buyers. So that means for buyers, they can go up to a moderate income, which is just under $100,000 a year for a family of four here in LA County, or to rent to low or very low income tenants, which low income tenants are also right just under $100,000 a year. LA County's weird that moderate and low income have the same income cap, almost, in LA County. But so in both cases, you're limited. The city is limited to selling them to families that are low or moderate income. So those are the decisions that still need to be made, that haven't even been discussed at the city council level until we have all the information we need regarding the the status of the homes right now. So, great, thank you. On the slide, this is really a description of what the different dispensations of the homes are, who it can go to, whether the city does the work, whether an affordable developer does the work, or whether it's a community land trust that takes ownership and ends up overseeing the work. So as I mentioned, the historic homes are slightly different. SB 381 allows for the historic homes to be sold at a market rate. They can be sold, if it's a $2 million home, it can be sold for $2 million. If the city chooses to do that, the city then has to use that money to build 3 affordable homes for every house that it sells. That's just what the law requires. So there's a few decisions we need to make, that the city needs to make. Whether the homes are going to be affordable or whether they're going to be market rate. If they are affordable, then we just kind of go back to the process that I just discussed. If they're going to be market rate, there's a couple of additional decisions. First is to rent or sell. The city can sell the homes at a market rate. They can also rent the homes at a market rate, depending on what the financing is and what the city decides they want to do. And then finally, it's whether or not to rehab or sell or rent as is. And there are pros and cons to both. Once we have all of the financial information, the city will be able to make that decision. So that's really the process. That's where we are, where we're going. So as we've been going through this process, there's been a number of myths that we've heard. And I'm going to try to bust those myths a little bit. I'm going to do my best Adam Savage impression up here and try to bust them. So there's a lot of text on these next few slides. I'm not going to read them all. That would be boring for everyone. So as I mentioned, there are these handouts so you can grab them so you can read what the text is as we go through these. But I'm going to talk about what the myths are and try to summarize what the slide says. So one of the myths we've heard repeatedly is that the city just hasn't been transparent. And as I showed earlier, we've had half a dozen public meetings over the past year talking about this. Most of those have been at city council. The city manager did host a listening session as well back in July, I believe, so we could talk about and hear the community's input on these issues. So this has not been something that we have done in secret. The city has not tried to hide anything from the public. We've been as open as we could be, and it's why we're having a meeting like this, so we can have an open dialogue about where we are and what the community's concerns are regarding these homes. So the second myth that we've heard is that the city and the South Pasadena Preservation Foundation have been formulating a plan, behind closed doors. It's similar to this, the first one, but the South Pasadena Preservation Foundation has been involved with this in that they have offered to help the city in its inspections of the historic homes. And one of the council meetings, the city council approved their proposal to be a part of the team to help with those inspections and so the city can understand the historic characteristics of the historic homes to make sure that those are preserved going forward. The third myth that we've heard is that the city is going to sell the properties to the highest bidders and that they're going to all become multi-million-dollar homes. As I've mentioned, for the non-historic homes, the city doesn't have that option legally. Now, for the historic homes, it's a little bit different. And the reason that SB 381 allows for the historic homes to be sold at a market rate, where it could become a multi-million-dollar home, is because maintaining a historic home is expensive, and it is a financial burden that would be difficult for an affordable buyer to shoulder. It pushes their home costs above what would legally be allowed. But the flip side of that is if the city decides to sell those homes at a market rate, it then has to go build 3 affordable homes for every 1 home that is sold at a market rate. So the goal of SB 381 was to still encourage and preserve affordable housing here in the city, even if these specific homes are sold at a market rate. The fourth myth is that there's no path to ownership for current and former tenants. And I've been talking about all of the unoccupied homes. After me, Ed Francis from CalTrans will speak about the process for the occupied homes. And there is a path for home ownership for current tenants. As I mentioned when I was talking about what SB 381 did for the city and the residents, is that it moved all of the current residents ahead of anybody else to be offered these homes for sale. So current tenants will get an offer letter for the homes that they live in now. A lot of tenants, I don't believe, have received those offer letters yet. CalTrans is going through that process, but they have started that process. And Ed will talk about that more, I believe, in just a minute. So I think I'm on 5. The 5th myth is that the city can use some other method that isn't SB 381 to purchase the homes, and that there is an alternative strategy that the city could be using. And quite simply, that's not the case. That SB 381 is the law, and if the city decides not to purchase the homes, CalTrans will follow the law and then offer these homes to the County of LA to be purchased. And if the County of LA says no, then CalTrans offers them, basically puts them out to bid for an HRE to purchase. And it goes through the waterfall that was on the earlier slide. So SB 381 is the process. There is no alternative. 6th, that if these homes become affordable, it will represent a huge loss of tax revenue, of property tax revenue to the city. And certainly, these homes, if they were sold on the market, would generate some property tax revenue. But it's not an enormous loss. If all of the homes become affordable, it's about a loss of $81,000 in property tax revenue to the city. And that's if it's affordable rental. If it's affordable home ownership, that goes down to about $66,000. And if it's split between them, it's about 33,000. So that's, it is certainly a loss. It is not an enormous loss, but it is something that the city council will have to take into account when they make the decision about whether or not to purchase these homes from CalTrans. But whether the city purchases them or not, it doesn't change whether or not these will be affordable. So it doesn't, whether or not the city chooses to purchase them doesn't have really any effect on what the property tax revenue from these homes will be. It just means the city doesn't have control over what happens with the homes. 8, I believe, doesn't matter. HREs are private corporations with no stake in the community. And this can be true. This is not necessarily a myth, but there's also a lot of HREs that are good, strong, nonprofit companies that do have the interests of the communities in which they work at heart. And it will be up to the city to ensure that they hire a good HRE that will care about what the residents and what the community wants in their neighborhoods. So, I think, this is not necessarily a myth. We'll just have to make sure that the city council hires a good company to do the work. They're not all bad. There's lots of good ones. I've worked for many. So, I think this is the third to last one. Maybe not. So, people that live in affordable housing units are undesirable tenants. That's a myth. There's a lot of people who qualify for affordable housing. I said what the income limit is earlier. It's a little bit less than $100,000 a year for a family of 4. For a one-income home, there's a lot of people that fall under that. Teachers, police officers, people that work at your grocery store, like all sorts of people fall under that. These are people we need in our communities. And, so just because somebody lives in a home that is affordable doesn't make them a bad person. That is certainly a myth that we've, hear repeatedly. Next myth is that the city will bear all of the risk in implementing SB 381. And, as I've mentioned repeatedly now, the city is doing all the analysis it needs to do to understand what that risk is and how much of a financial responsibility it will have to bear if it chooses to purchase these homes. It might be that these homes pay for themselves. It might not. We don't know. But that is the amount of risk will be something that the city council is going to have to consider. But it is not something that has been considered yet, because we don't know all of the details about what it's going to cost to do anything that the city decides to do with these homes. But we're working on it. Next myth, the side-by-side escrow process will still allow moderate income buyers to purchase one of the surplus homes. We hear a lot about side-by-side escrow processes, and it's not something that is recognized under SB 381 as something that's possible. That doesn't mean that moderate income buyers can't purchase the homes. SB 381 certainly allows that. But the city is the only agency that's allowed to purchase the homes, in this kind of first offer. So the homes have to go through the city, and then the city can, then turn around and sell them to a moderate income buyer if that's what the city chooses to do as the dispensation of the homes. Okay, last two, I swear, this time. The necessary financial analysis and due diligence hasn't been done to make these decisions. That's not a myth. I've been upfront that has not been done yet, but we're working on it, and that financial information and due diligence will be done before the city makes any final decisions on what to do with these homes. Oh, sorry, that was the last myth, because now I'm going to talk about next steps for SB 381 implementation. As I mentioned, right now we are going through an inspection of all of the unoccupied properties. An inspection company was hired last month before, to do all of that work. The South Pasadena Preservation Foundation is partnering with the city to do that as well for the historic homes. And all of that information will be compiled into a giant financial model that will help explain and help the city make decisions about what it can do with these homes and what is financially feasible. Sometime before the end of the year, we're expecting CalTrans to provide the purchase and sale agreements for the homes, and the city will have some period of time before they have to turn around and make a decision. I want to say it's required to be within 30 days, but I don't have that in my notes, and I'm off the top of my head, so I think that's right. I see Angelica. 60 days? Okay, thank you. So within 60 days. And then, so the city's ad hoc implementation committee, which is here with us tonight, will meet and discuss and make a recommendation to city council on what to do once all the information has been provided to them. And then early next year, the city council will make a decision on all of these things that I have talked about tonight. So that is where we're at and where we're going. And we want to hear from you. So there's a email address up there. There is a website that QR code will take you to, and a phone number. So if you have comments, if you have questions, please reach out. If obviously we're going to have time tonight to hear your questions, but if you don't want to say them publicly, or if you don't get your question answered to your satisfaction, please reach out to us, and we will be more than happy to help answer any questions and hear any concerns you might have. So thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand it back over to Don. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. And at this point, we'd like to give a few minutes for CalTrans Ed Francis to provide some updates ahead of jumping into the community input portion of the night. Thank you.
So, good evening, and first I'd like to say thank you to the city of South Pasadena, because I think this is an important juncture in moving forward in the process. To have the communication, to provide information, to have this dialogue. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I feel the collaboration has been key in moving things forward. So it's been a very positive path forward. So I'll keep it brief. I'm looking at the clock. I want to make sure everybody has time. So Grant did an excellent job on where we are, how we're moving forward. What I'd like to do is offer where we are as far as the tenants and our affordable sales program. So as it's been stated, we have started that process. To date, we've sent out 65 letters to tenants to start that process. So the process, and not to get into the details, but in a general sense, those solicitation letters go out. Tenants have an opportunity to indicate that they're interested in purchasing. Those go back. We start the process of verifying tenancy, going through our records, and then going out and requesting documentation, and that process has started. So things are moving forward. So I know that I'll save for questions. I know some people here are probably tenants, and I'm looking around the room. Because there's so many tenants, I encourage you to reach out to our sales hotline. They can give you an idea of when your letter is going to come out. As you can imagine, we have hundreds of tenants. So the logistics of trying to get out that information and be precise it's challenging. But we do have opportunities for tenants to come forward and say, hey, just give me an idea. And that's where I come in, and I'm encouraging that dialogue. I encourage everybody to please reach out, because we have that information. It's just really tough to send out mass. So as we're moving forward, we're collaborating with the city on the inspections. We're moving forward under SB 381. Throughout the corridor, we are releasing properties for bid, so the process is happening. I'll keep it brief, because that's really my goal, is to ensure that this communication continues. Some of you have known me. I am very open to receiving calls, emails. I have an open door policy. Just reach out and I can get you. So thank you. Yes?
I understand that there were some people who were tenants who were evicted. So what will happen to those people as we're trying to send out offer letters?
So we have not evicted any tenants. No. That's a myth buster. Yeah. So I do want to make sure that we have time. I'm looking at the clock, so I'm open to questions about the process. Thanks.
Hi, good evening. Angelica Fraustalupo, Director of Community Development. I just wanted to add a little bit more information to the sales process to tenants. As Ed mentioned, solicitation letters have begun to go out to tenants in the corridor. What I wanted to clarify is that for South Pasadena specific, there are about 10 or so solicitation letters to Pasadena. So solicitation letters are going out in batches of about 20 to 25 in the entire corridor from El Sereno, South Pasadena, and Pasadena. I just wanted to make sure that it sounded like 65 tenants of South Pasadena had received those letters, and I do know that that is not true, and I wanted to bust that myth right away. I will take just a couple of minutes to introduce Leah Demarest, and Leah, if you can just wave to the group here. Leah is our Senior Management Analyst for Housing Programs. She just started with us about a week and a half ago and just got right in it. Leah comes with an extensive background in affordable housing. She has experience in affordable housing financing, experience in working with tenants' rights groups, working with community land trusts. So we are absolutely thrilled to have Leah as part of the team, and Leah's contact information was there on the slide, and that's on the PowerPoint. We have handouts here. Hopefully you all got it. I also wanted to take a moment to mention that the SB 381 frequently asked questions and contact information has the hotline that Ed mentioned. So there's contact information on the security company, contact information for the highway patrol, and as well as who to call in an emergency, and the hotline for the sales program, and Veterans Realty Group, who is managing the solicitation process for tenants. All that information is here. If you didn't receive one, please, I encourage you to do so. As Dawn mentioned earlier, that's also been posted on the website. So, yep.
All right. So those are our updates, and please bear with us as we give our South Pasadena reporter a quick minute to switch out his SD cards. He is recording the meeting for us tonight. I'd like to get a show of hands how many folks would like to speak tonight so that we can help accommodate. $15 to $20? All right. So Grant and Angelica will be helping to facilitate. We're going to have a couple of folks with microphones who will come up to you and give you an opportunity to speak. Again, if there is something specific to your experience, we'll be capturing, we have some staff with the half sheets of paper to capture your contact information. We'll follow up with you. But this is your opportunity for community input and sharing your opinions and your feedback. We're going to provide 3 minutes per speaker. We've counted about 15 to 20 speakers. And again, please consider and be considerate of each other and follow that code of conduct and code of kind of decorum for tonight so that we can hear from everyone. Can I please get a show of hands, or who would like to go first? I see you right here. Esteban, are we ready to go? Thank you so much. I ask that you please share your name if you're comfortable. And you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Linda Esposito, and I want to thank everyone for having this opportunity. And I've sent many email on behalf of my neighbors. We have a specific situation. I'm going to keep it brief. There's about, I think, 8 to 10 CalTrans properties where my neighborhood is located. Meridian Avenue, Oneonta, Bonita Drive. I just want to make sure, and again, I want to thank Dom and City Manager Chapadian, and also Ed Francis. Ed, we go way back. You've been so amazing with being very, very responsive. Just want to make sure that you understand that even though we have a rather large amount of vacant lots and also vacant properties as well as occupied tenant CalTrans properties, our street is really tiny, it's narrow. We've had a history of traffic accidents, problems, access problems, traffic problems. My cars have been hit numerous times over the last 15 years because of the small street as well as the turnaround in front of my home. Had I known 15 years ago, probably would have went somewhere else. But I just want to make sure, and again, this is kind of reiterating what I've been saying in email because you've all been very, very responsive, that just because we have a number of occupied, unoccupied properties and vacant lots does not mean that we are ready to go. These properties, some of them have been unoccupied for 40 years. They are dilapidated. I would hope that the community members, I understand people want to get in, we want housing for everyone, but it's going to be a process. And just the noise pollution, the traffic, the lack of parking has been an issue. And again, I just want to say a big thank you to especially Ed Francis from CalTrans, because when we had our first round of the squatter break-ins, and I just want to say that I hope that everyone understands that homelessness is a crisis of epic proportions. It's a humanitarian crisis that needs to be repaired and rehabilitated and solved. However, attempting to commandeer a neighborhood through breaking in during the beginning of the pandemic and threatening neighbors when they're upstairs with their children and you're wearing ski masks is not the answer, which we've been dealing with since 4/6/2020. Ed has been on it, other people have been on it. We are so grateful, but we have been through the ringer in our quarter. So I just want to let people know that just because we have about 8 to 10 unoccupied properties and lots does not mean that it's a green light. There's a lot of mitigating factors. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Hello, I'm Richard Fannin. I'm a tenant in South Pasadena of one of the CalTrans properties. What I'm interested in is when this is going to happen. It's nice to know that 10 letters have gone out. We've sent emails, made requests. We're told that they're only going out now to people who've been in their property over 25 years. We've been there for 21 years. We're told maybe 9 to 12 months from now, we're going to get a letter. If the process starts 9 to 12 months from now, and that's government 9 to 12 months, you're talking a year and a half from now, it's not going to conclude for 2.5 years. This is way too long to get this thing done. When we try to get more information, we're told no more information is forthcoming. And we've tried every possible way. And, you know, everybody's very polite, saying, well, we don't know. When is this going to happen? Why can't they send out more letters for the people now so that we get something moving now if they know they're going to do it. And this-
I'll give Ed an opportunity to respond. Hi, Angelica Fraustalupo, Director of Community Development, the City of South Pasadena. Yeah, and I'll let Ed respond.
No, and thank you for the question. It's a valid question, because I know I've been involved with the 710 for a number of years now. I realize the frustration, the uneasiness, everything that goes along with, like, when is this going to happen? So I'll clarify that going into this process is very involved, very complex. So what we're doing is starting the process to gauge how this will roll out, and we're gonna make adjustments. So it's kind of baby steps in a way to see how the process, so we can fine tune it. So we'll be able to streamline things, because we wanted to avoid just a mass approach, which may not be fair to others, because people need time to get their documentation, people need time to really evaluate. So please reach out to me. I will respond to your email. I do want to follow up regarding the information, or lack thereof, that you've been getting, and I'll be able to clarify a little bit more information for you to concise where people fall in. So please reach out to me. I'll go back. I made a note that those communications are important, and the fact that I'm hearing that you might be pushed to the side is not acceptable. So I will go back and rectify that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And did I have another question over here while I'm here? Okay.
Hi, this is Ann Begasow from South Pasadena Tenants Union, and this actually is a question for Grant. If the city decides to purchase those properties, which I'm not opposed to, given our situation with the housing element and the required numbers of affordable units that we are allowed to build, if some of these unoccupied homes, which might be determined to be grossly inhabitable even with a reputable HRE developer coming in to bring them up to code, would not the city consider that now as city property for development of 100% affordable housing under the housing element?
Yes. So the housing element is a little bit funny. The city can't take credit for affordable homes that are, if the project is smaller than 3 units, I believe it is, and these are all considered, 1-unit properties for the most part. So the housing element talks about the homes and as preserving them as affordable housing, but they don't get to go towards meeting the city's RHNA needs. I hope that answers your question.
I'm sorry. Okay, what I'm going to do is going to go back and forth to the room, so I'm sure everybody gets an opportunity. Up here, please. Excuse me.
Hi there, I'm Susan Berlando. I'm happy to be here tonight. I just have a couple questions about what you said. One of them was affordable housing, and that is for people that have income of 100,000 or less, right? That's what you said. Okay.
For a family of 4, yes.
For a family of 4. So if it's a family of less than that, the income is less?
Yes, it is less.
Substantially less?
It can be. There's a chart that goes, oh, you have it?
Family of 2 is 64? Is that what you said? Okay. Okay. I just remember as a child growing up, there was the people that had a lot of money, and then there was the people that didn't have any money. And both of those people were satisfied with things that they got, because I didn't have much money, somebody gave me money, which we all know happens in this world. And those that have a lot of money have it so they can have it. But all the people in the middle just force themselves and work day and night just so that they can make the rent or whatever, and never get to have that house. And I think that this is an opportunity for those people to have that kind of a house, as opposed to going from the street to the house. There's a path in between that all of these people who have been struggling through making their bill, giving up everything else so that way their bill is made, yet never get it. And this is a real opportunity that we could help those kind of people, as opposed to just automatically go to the homeless and to those that have not tried to make their own way with their job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for holding the meeting. I think it's a constructive process. I have two questions. The first is concerning how many historic homes will be subject to the historic home purchase and resale path outlined in 381. Now, I've heard the city say both 7 and 8 in different presentations given at different times. CalTrans told me by email this week there were 7. The South Pasadena Historical Preservation Group has talked about 20 potentially. And there's a statement on the city's website that says anything built earlier than 45 years ago could be deemed historic. So that's question one. Question two is that both Councilmember Zienmer and Councilmember Primuth at the City Council meeting last night referred to an alternate pathway for purchasing and handling these vacant houses outside of the AB or the SB 381 process, that there was another process that was being examined in City Hall. I'd like to know what that process is. We have looked at many of us, the video of that meeting, and clearly that was discussed. I'd like to know about that process.
Thank you.
So let me respond. So there is, we've had probably maybe 40 or 50 public comments over the course of 4 or 5 meetings in the last 4 months, asking the City Council to look at a side-by-side escrow process that does not involve the 381 pathway. And that involves a particular legal pathway, and I've received a proposed agreement for that particular pathway. I've looked at it. I'm a lawyer. I've looked at it with other lawyers, and I'm not going to give a legal opinion on it, but it is a very problematic pathway. I've talked with the Preservation Foundation, that's the principal proponent of that pathway, for about 1.5 years about the legal impediments that I see in that pathway. We have not ruled it out. It has not come before the City Council. We've received an awful lot of public comment. So we're going to continue to look at it. When I say it's problematic, I'm not saying it's 100% no, but it's getting close, because the more I look, the more I see it just doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is if you don't pursue 381, which is an affordable sale to an income-qualified homeowner, and you do it another way where you sell it at fair market value to anybody, you now have the potential for a lawsuit by someone who's enforcing the 381 sales process. And so if the city wants to create a whole separate parallel pathway that's going to be subject to a lawsuit for every single sale, I don't think that's a smart strategy. So I am not at 100%. We are still going to look at it, because I am not the final determinant as the City Council member. But having spent a lot of time talking, hours and hours of talking, researching, I don't think that pathway is viable, but we haven't ruled it out. So if it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, it's because we've gotten 40 to 50 public comments saying, look at it. So I'm going to look at it. We're going to continue to look at it. And we have actually a process to make sure we come to a legally definitive conclusion about that. It hasn't been made, so you'll hear me talk about it. It's enticing, but it's highly problematic, and I don't see a way around it. 7 in this batch. It's not 20.
So there are 7 parcels, but one of those parcels has multiple property or multiple structures on it. So that's why you hear different numbers. It depends on if we're talking about parcels or if we're talking about structures. So that's part of the confusion there. But there are 7 legal parcels that are in this batch.
A question over here.
Hello, my name's Tony. I live on Meridian Avenue. And thank you, everybody, for organizing this. I think this is very helpful and needed. I just have really quick questions. I was wondering if there was some kind of map, something online that would identify these properties and also break down the types of property, whether or not the parcel was vacant, there was a structure, if it was historic, if it was not, if it's available for affordable housing. If there isn't such a tool, I think that would be incredibly useful and helpful for everybody in this process in keeping track of things. I was also curious to know if the results of the analysis of the homes in this inspection process, if there's an expectation of a report identifying the results of those inspections.
I can speak to the inspections report. Once those are finalized, we will be sharing that with the city council, so that will become a public document and available to the public. Yeah. Thank you.
I can actually speak to the mapping system. So as we know on our website, the properties are listed. That's public information. What we're working on is developing a map, which will identify the type, location, occupied, not occupied, but we're working through some proprietary matters to be able to put that out. What we're envisioning at first is more of a snapshot, but what I'm working on is an interactive. But I do have some things to work out, so we are working on that.
And I do believe we have a question somewhere up here at the front.
Hello, my name is Emma Carpenter. I'm a lifelong resident of South Pasadena. I went through the schooling system here, and currently I'm a research coordinator at the USC School of Social Work, investigating how different neighborhood factors impact adolescent health and development. So I can speak through a researcher's perspective and also a firsthand perspective of how much of beautiful South Pasadena has had to offer on my own mental health, access to resources, ability to develop into the type of person that I am proud to be today. So to go into this statement, I think that the 710 homes issue reveals one of the greatest contradictions I see in my hometown. We always talk about how we are proud to embrace diversity, but our actions say otherwise. In this case, the strong influence of homeowners fear that the presence of working class people near them will lower their property values. As a result, they may very well push the city council to pursue a plan that prevents affordable housing and put the city in further legal jeopardy. It's easy to get into the weeds with this topic, but as a young working person, I don't have time to attend every single city council meeting. It's clear that the central question is whether we want to allow economic diversity into our town, whether or not we embrace change to our low-density built environment, and change to our exclusionary ways. Looking back only half a century ago can show how South Pasadena was able to stop a freeway and avoid the fate that poorer communities weren't as lucky to have. Other parts of that not too distant history include a public pool where Black people weren't allowed and real estate covenants through the city that did the same. I was lucky to go to school with people of different backgrounds, children of single parents, immigrants, and renters. That diversity both makes us stronger and more appealing. There is no reason to fear the middle class and working people from moving in. In fact, we should be striving to allow as many below market rate units on these vacant sites as possible. I want to support the position of Care for South Pasadena and ask the city to follow the spirit of SB 381 in good faith and disperse the CalTrans properties to affordable housing providers who will maximize affordable housing on those sites. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Elizabeth Odie, and I have lived in South Pasadena since 1970 and spent 50 years working with the committee to prevent the freeway. And I'm here to say that we are still here, all of those people who stepped out of their comfort zones and fought with the state of California. This may be something that some of you recognize. We worked very hard for this, and this is the last step in fighting the freeway. I have gone up and down the corridor talking to people. People want individual ownership of the homes. We do not want private corporations involved in our city, no matter how many of them might be acceptable. We want the properties back on the tax rolls, even if it is only $81,000. But of course, that money is raised year after year. There is a Prop 13 moratorium on how much they can raise it. We do not want these homes sold for $4 million or $2 million if you have the ability to sell these homes to teachers, police officers, fire people, people who make an income that normally cannot afford property, but we are not interested in solving the county or the state's homeless problem in our little tiny 3-mile square city. That has to happen somewhere else. Affordable housing is very important, and we do want people who have moderate incomes.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alexander Aquino. Just want to first off say thank you for the meeting, thank you for the information, and I'm going to echo a little bit of the public comment I made yesterday. I also want to say thank you to the freeway fighters. I know y'all put up a good fight, and it's nice not having a freeway running through our town, but that was a long time ago, and things have changed, and I think what the young lady here said was spot on, and I, of course, encourage you all to take the path of SB 381. It's the right path, and creating affordable housing is very important to our city of South Pasadena, not just the county, not just the state, but here in our town at home. I do have a few questions as well. My first one is, are the occupied CalTrans homes being offered to the tenants at market rate or city rate? That's my first question. My second question is kind of a follow-up of what Bill was asking about. Is there some way in which the properties that are not these 7 designated historical properties be made into historical properties before they are, transferred? Not Councilmember Blumenthal shaking his head. And then, you see what I'm getting at, where the remaining ones are. Yeah. I think that's it for my questions.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and give Ed an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, so the tenants are given the opportunity to purchase at affordable price, which is no lower than the original acquisition price. And that's based on income. If they are determined to be eligible, then they go through that process to determine what the affordable price is. and they have the opportunity to purchase at fair market value. So as we had talked about before, SB 381 really put the tenants ahead of everything. They have the right to stay through the process. If they're unable to purchase, they're not going to be displaced. So there's a whole waterfall that goes through. So the key part, and this is why we're working through the process, because going through a large number of documentation takes time. And we want to offer the opportunity for tenants to feel they're not being rushed, that they have time, that there's safeguards implemented to extend those periods. So they always have that opportunity one way or another to purchase. I hope that answered your question.
In regard to the 7 historic properties, the city has the opportunity to sell the historic properties at fair market value and plow the proceeds into a fund that must generate 3 affordable units, right? The list of historic properties was fixed before 381 passed. So there's no opportunity to switch to bump up the historic numbers for some financial gain. It's already fixed. The city actually selected those properties. They were already out the state, national, or local historical register.
Hi, my name is Lexi. I've been a South Pasadena resident since I was 4. I've gone to school from K through 12 here. Now I'm a teacher in El Sereno. I have a question about if you were to sell the historic homes, if you were to sell them over market price, how would that affect? Because I was a renter, or like my family's a renter. I know many other renters. Like, how does that affect the rent control in South Pasadena? And another question that I have is, you keep saying that for every historic home that you sell, you have to build 3 other homes, affordable housing. Where do you plan on building those? And if you already have to build affordable housing, why not just build a facility to help homeless people or people in rehabilitation programs, because they also need to have a place to stay and live and rehabilitate to get better and back on this into society.
Thank you.
So the city is currently working on their housing element, which shows where all of the available sites are for affordable housing in the city. So I would refer you to the draft housing element that is currently being updated as well, but the existing draft has a pretty good list of where affordable housing can be built right now. So that's kind of the first part of your question, and I think regarding housing for people who are experiencing homelessness, we've heard kind of a couple of different things here. I think that the first thing to say is that these homes that we're talking about tonight are probably going to be affordable to people of moderate income if they are sold, or low income but not extremely low income. Somebody who is homeless today can't qualify for a mortgage to purchase one of these homes, I think is the real short answer for why people who are homeless probably can't be qualified to purchase these homes. They just can't afford that. As for what gets built on the affordable housing sites that the city has identified, that's going to be up to the affordable housing developers that come forward who want to build on those sites, and what available financing there is. I know I do a lot of affordable housing finance work, and a lot of the available funds right now are specifically targeted towards people who are experiencing homelessness. That's people build what they can finance, and that's true for everybody, market rate developers and affordable developers alike. So, I think that there isn't a decision there to be made from the city point of view regarding these homes specifically related to, homelessness and addressing, housing for people who are experiencing homelessness. And the Mayor Pro Tem is standing up like he wants to say something.
This hits a level that I think is created a lot of anxiety with people, and that is, to what extent is the City Council going to direct or have a policy or have any kind of preference for some of these homes, or all of these homes, to be used for some kind of affordable housing and with a component that could be social services. It could be rehab, it could be transitional housing, it could be homeless. The first thing you need to know is that the city has to accommodate affordable housing. It's separate from 381, separate from the CalTrans homes. The city is now under a mandate from the state, and it is actually, I'll just tell you my personal view, it is a welcome mandate for the city to start making available more space, more density, more opportunities for the kinds of homes that will allow for mixed income neighborhoods. It doesn't always have to be single family homes. We are going to need to have to accommodate our share of affordable homes to make sure that we contribute our fair share to the solution to the affordable housing crisis in the city, in the state. The CalTrans homes could be used for some of that. Now, that is a policy decision. We've been asked very strongly to say and declare that we will not allow nonprofit HREs to develop these homes and use them for social services. I am not going to make that pledge because I think we have to balance our commitment to social justice. We have to balance our commitment to making our community accessible and affordable to everyone with the need for tax revenue, with the need to create home ownership opportunities. All of those things are in the mix. They are not exclusive, and I cannot tell you, and this is just my personal opinion going out on a limb here, I am not going to say one way or the other, we're going to do all affordable rental housing, multi-unit, we're going to create as much density on these CalTrans homes. That I think would be inappropriate. Also would be inappropriate to say we are only going to go for home ownership on every single home we can and keep it at the highest income level and not allow any nonprofit service providers to come in to provide social services. I'm not going to go to that extreme either. So I know that I have future council members sitting here, and Jack is here, and this is probably the first time you've heard me say that. So I want to say it's a deep personal issue for me. You may not hear council talk about it because we sort of wait till the right moment. But in this moment, I feel personally I can step out and say that. So I felt like that was the right moment. But thank you, Grant, for the technical side. I just wanted to share my heart.
Just as a reminder, there are several policy decisions that haven't been made by council, so I just want to reiterate that and address the question. I think there was a comment earlier about SB 381 and the process. As we mentioned earlier, we are underway with that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ella Hooshagen, resident here in South Pasadena. Just a quick, before I have a few questions, but I do want to just reiterate things that other people have said about the racial justice component of welcoming affordable housing development in our community. South Pasadena, as a lot of you know, passed a Sundown Town resolution this year, committing to evaluate policy from the perspective of racial justice. And as we know, people of color, Black and Latinx people are more likely to experience homelessness, poverty. There's a really good LA Times article I encourage everyone to read about overcrowding in our region and how our sort of obsession with single-family zoning and our bottomless need for labor has created LA as the most overcrowded city in the country. So thank you, everyone, for committing to implement 381. I think it's going to be a really important piece of legislation in our city. My questions are, what is the enforcement mechanism to build the 3 affordable units for each historic home that we end up selling at market value? In the materials, it says repeatedly that one option is to rehabilitate some of these homes. And I just want to, I think you basically said it, but I just want to make sure I understand that at this point, we're not considering changing the zoning to allow for demolition and construction of multifamily, maybe, duplexes, quads. I think from my perspective, some multifamily options would be really positive. And so I just want to find out where you guys are at on that. And then finally, Mayor Pro Tem, I asked you if you could share the SPPF, the South Pasadena Preservation Foundation plan. You mentioned that it might be available tonight. I don't see it in the materials. So just to echo what Bill said about sort of the feeling that there were negotiations happening behind the scenes, that there's information we don't have. The information here is great. It says you're going to implement SB 381, but last night you and council members Znaimer were saying, well, there's an alternative. We don't understand what the alternative is. We haven't been shared any details about that. So, I think that can contribute to some distrust. And if there's more you can tell us, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think I can share, and I will share a little bit. I just refer back to my comments about the legal pathway for that particular plan is very problematic. So, I'll share what I can later. But on the enforcement of the historic sales, the statute actually has a very elaborate enforcement mechanism involving reporting, timetables. It's going to be reported to, I think, HCD or one of the state agencies to make sure that South Pasadena is spending its money in a timely way to create the units that it's required to. So I don't see any issue with lax enforcement under the statute.
I'll just add regarding the enforcement that the city is required to report to HCD on an annual basis, our annual progress report on housing, and that would be included there.
Hi, everyone. I just want to give a reminder. We have about 30 more minutes to go, and another reminder that this is just the beginning of the conversation. I appreciate everyone's sentiments and comments and questions, and we do hope to keep this going, but we have about 30 more minutes.
Hi, my name is Camilo. I've been a tenant for about 12 years. My question's for Ed in regard to market. I know you can't give me a number right now, but we live in a house that my family and my wife and I wouldn't otherwise be able to afford with our 4 kids. So is market going to be as the property is, and priced accordingly? Or is it going to be fixed up and reevaluated, or the price maxed for profit? I have neighbors that have recently sold their house for $3 million. We're not those type of people. So I want to know more accurately what fair market might be in relation to how well the homes have been upkept over the past 30 to 40 years.
It's a fair question. I think at this point in the process, our focus is really the affordable aspect, right? Given the opportunities for tenants to purchase at affordable price based on income, then we step up that evaluation for appraisal work. As we know, in our phase 1, there was a number of properties that were sold. So I can't opine or predetermine any value at this point. But I will say that condition is a valuation aspect when it comes to appraisals and home value. So, there's various dynamics of the condition that will be evaluated. So I know I didn't answer your question. I would encourage you again to reach out. We can kind of get into, but I would hate to give an opinion now. I deal with real estate, but I'm not a broker. I wouldn't want to set a number that might not be true.
Thank you very much. My name is Matthew Barbado, and I live in the corridor on Glendon Way. And I'm a big proponent of SB 381, and I appreciate that the commitment that's been made here. And I would love to see the house that's right near me taken down and multi-family affordable units put up there. I would welcome that in my neighborhood. And if it had a social services component to it, I would also welcome that. My question is, in the last 20 years in South Pasadena, how many affordable units have been built? Does anyone know? 10. Is that right? 10 permitted. I think we have a lot of catching up to do. And I think that our town, which has approximately 27,000 people, can absorb a handful, a few dozen more people of lower income that are living in different circumstances than us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. I had heard mentioned, and I'm not sure if this is correct, in order to qualify for RENA, it needs to have 3 units or more, as well as, and I'm assuming the mechanism is a deed restriction for every sale to create 3 units. In your process of looking at the rehab, have you looked at the ability to create these single-family homes into 3 units, which is already allowed by state law as a cost budget? So maybe the sale of these can be used to fuel adding more units to hit your RENA numbers to also create those 3 for the sale that you need. And I guess the question is there any collaboration with other cities that are dealing with these CalTrans homes, what they're doing? A collaborative effort to what Pasadena is looking at, what El Sereno, what the county is looking at for their homes as well.
So the short answer is no, that we haven't looked at what it would take to either add on to these homes to create more units or demolish these homes and develop more units on these parcels. I don't think that SB 381 contemplated that in the way it was drafted. And that's not to say it is impossible to do under the existing law. I don't know that. But it is not what was contemplated, so we haven't looked at it. But I think it's something that we can definitely explore and see what's possible and what's financially feasible, if that's what council is interested in doing.
I will just also add that I have reached out to colleagues in the city of Pasadena to see what their programs and what they're exploring. I do see some questions back here.
Hi, I'm Helen from Care for South Pasadena, and I wanted to follow up about the alternative plans that have been discussed. We got council members' Primit's insight on it, and since CalTrans is here tonight, I was wondering if you have an opinion on whether a double escrow is allowed under SB 381.
So under SB 381, the double escrow is very, how it's presented in context is always depending on who's bringing it forward. I will just say under 381, under the sales and what we've been talking about with the city, that term is in, how it's used, I'm trying to find the right words. The alternative plan, we have to abide by 381. So there's nothing that prohibits a side-by-side escrow if the city moves forward with selling at fair market, because that's just a real estate transaction, right? So it's complex, but as the presentation showed, there's a plan to do a double escrow is not under SB 381. So I hope that answered your question. Like, we have to abide by the law.
Thank you, Ed. I do have a question here.
Hi, good evening. I have a couple of questions. First of all, there was a gentleman here that asked a question, what will be the cost of the property? And I give you an example. If you buy the property for $300,000 at market value today, and it takes $200,000 to rehabilitate the property, now we have $500,000 investment. And you evaded the answer. So I expect you to give an answer to that question. But the other question I have is, what about fraud? Our society has it. And I'll give you an example. A couple comes in, a single person, let's say earning $50,000 that qualify to buy the property. Now, maybe they live with somebody else. 6 months later, they're married to somebody that makes $200,000. We have a problem. How about people that are living together today, but one person is qualified and the other person is not entitled, but they're living together for 10 years someplace else, they're buying the property and they make maybe $300,000. So we have a problem in terms of, how shall I say it? But anyway, you'll figure it out. So what are the controls about something like this? I really want to get the answer about money in dollar-wise, how you see it, and then how you prevent fraud. Thank you.
So going back to fair market, so again, evaluating now, I think would be unfair to anybody who has an idea. However, as is condition is a factor when it comes to fair market value. I hope that answers your question.
Sir, I'd like to remind the public that we are going to be civil here with each other, and if the question cannot be answered tonight, there will be follow-up.
I will take your question back. I will take it back to my team who is really working on that directly. I can just say that that is something that we're considering, but I want to be fair to your question, so if you please will leave your information with me, I will be sure to get back to you.
I actually would like to invite Christy Lopez up to answer the question. Earlier there was a question about what other cities are doing in the corridor, and Christy Lopez is with Senator Portantino's office, who has some information to share with us. Yes, absolutely. Just one other announcement. And in the interest of time, I see that we're approaching the 7 o'clock hour. I'm actually going to ask people who have questions or comments to actually please stand up here, because that actually will give us more time and more speakers an opportunity.
Hi, my name is Christy. I'm with the Office of State Senator Anthony Portantino and helped him draft SB 381. And so I wanted to address the comment about what other cities are doing. The intent of SB 381 really was for the city of South Pasadena. You guys are a unique city, and we wanted to kind of build a framework that would help expedite the process, streamline the process for sales, while allowing the city a viable kind of path forward. And so when we drafted it, it was specific to the city of South Pasadena because you all have specific needs. Your city isn't like Pasadena. Your city isn't like Alhambra. Your city is unique, and so we crafted 381 based on that. And so to kind of answer your question about are we working with other cities or what are other cities doing, it so happens that the city of Pasadena, after seeing what 381 did, wanted to do something similar in the city of Pasadena, and we authored SB 959 to address their unique needs. And so we and the senator has kind of been working with the cities along the corridor to help craft legislation that is specific and unique to each city. And so I just wanted to, that's what I kind of wanted to elaborate on, was that we are working with other cities, and other cities saw what was going on in South Pasadena with 381 and wanted something similar, but tweaks made to fit their particular city.
Thank you, and as I mentioned, in the interest of time, I have asked speakers to come line up, and we'll go ahead with Mark.
Thank you, Angelica. Good evening. Mark Gallatin. I want to first off thank the city for holding this very important listening session. It's been a great meeting, and I really appreciate that it's being done. Secondly, I want to say a specific thank you to our implementation committee, Vice Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Primuth, and Councilman Donovan. Thank you again, really, for all the hard work that you're doing on this very complicated issue. My comment, really, I thought it was going to be a question originally, but maybe it'll just be a comment. After seeing Grant's presentation, I was left a little bit confused regarding the side-by-side or double escrow. My confusion stems from what I commented on last night at the council meeting, which is Mayor Pro Tem Primuth was quoted in the press as saying the 381 process would permit a double escrow, or a double escrow was possible under 381. And we hear tonight that that is a myth. But I really want to thank, again, Mayor Pro Tem Primuth for clarifying the qualifier. If I understood correctly, what he was saying is that within the structure or the pathway of 381, a side-by-side escrow may be possible because it is, after all, just a means to an end, the end being disposition of the properties. I think staff mentioned last night at the council meeting also that Mr. Ed Francis was doing some further research on this issue, so that's appreciated. And I would just suggest that for future materials that you put out, if you could include that important qualifier, because you know, I've been very close to this issue for a long time, and I was confused on it. So I think it's real important that that messaging be clear and on point. Last thing I just wanted to say also is a couple speakers have referenced the requirement in 381 for the 3 affordable units for each historic home sold. And they've talked about building affordable units. I just want to clarify, and maybe this is a question for Grant or Angelica, I believe the operative word in the statute is create 3 affordable units. So would that, could that include things like, you know, writing down rent, subsidizing rent, or using other means like an affordability covenant on existing units in order to achieve that goal?
Mark, and I'll take a first stab at it there. You are correct. The idea is that create 3 units for one that's sold. And so we're not there yet, but we've had some very initial preliminary discussions within the office that maybe that means rehabbing 3 units and then renting them at affordable, you know, who knows? Maybe it means, you know, providing subsidies. We don't know that yet. Those are decisions that will be made later. I don't know if Grant, if you want to, no, we're good. Okay, thank you. Alan?
Good evening. I'm Alan Ehrlich. I've been a resident for 22 years, both as a homeowner and as a renter. And I see a conflict here. I'm running for city treasurer, and if I'm elected, or if my opponent is elected, one of our responsibilities is to maximize the return on investments. Now, the city code 2.99, disposal of real property, says it shall be made to the highest bidder. So I'd like to ask Mr. Primuth or the city attorney, how do you reconcile a side-by-side escrow if it's not being offered to the highest bidder? A quick follow-up question for Grant. Somebody asked you a question earlier about if a property sold in the 3 properties, couldn't these CalTrans properties under SB 9 and 10 be subdivided and doubles put on each of the halves that were subdivided? And I've heard people talk about we're afraid of the affordable housing. Let's keep in mind here that our teachers get a starting salary of $49,000. They would qualify for affordable housing. We have a problem recruiting teachers. We have a problem recruiting police officers. We have a problem recruiting city staff. So providing affordable housing serves the interests of the city as a recruiting tool. So there are a lot of positives to providing affordable housing. And the last question, Ed, maybe you can address this. I'd like to kind of shatter this illusion of affordability for the existing tenants, that given the condition of the properties, if their income is low enough to qualify to be able to buy those properties, they're not going to have the $100,000 or $200,000 that it's going to take minimally to refurbish those properties. So there's an illusion there that you're trying to make us all believe that even the tenants would be able to afford these properties and not have to go through some other process. Thank you.
Just real quick on the code question, Alan, I'm happy to get back to you on that, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to Ed.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief. So under the regulations, any home that's purchased under the affordable sales program is required to have lender-required repairs. So those properties will be repaired to safe and sanitary conditions. They'll be inspected, and those repairs will be done at no cost to the tenant.
All right, and Alan, regarding your SB 9 question, is it possible for them to be split legally? Absolutely. That is, what the law is, that residential parcels can be split like that. So it's a question of, is that, something that the city is interested in doing, and then, how does that work with the, affordability covenants that are required on the properties if they are sold or rented to an affordable buyer? And that's a question I think that we would need to work through if that's a direction that, the city's interested in exploring.
Next speaker, please.
Let's give it up for our awesome new city manager, our city staff, and all of the awesome public servants that came out tonight. Thank you so much. And the fact that John said that RHNA is a welcome mandate. We've come a long way. That's awesome. We got a long way to go. So I wrote a poem. In 1888, the city's new motto said, "A church and school on every hill, but no saloon in the valley." A lily-white town of homes with many trees. At around 25,000 people, it would later freeze. A Mayberry community, we would like to keep it, please. In the post-war period, we beat the freeway. We wielded a new law called CEQA to gain some leeway. A bulldozer that our less fortunate neighbors could not avoid. Still, eminent domain left many houses devoid. Across the country, the Red Scare spooked. Public housing at Chavez Ravine got duped. Streetcar lines were removed. In South Pasadena, Monterey Hills tamed the last wilderness. Apartments on Raymond Hill led to a downzoning ordinance. The rest of the SGV was considered subordinate. The freeway was beat, but the traffic was on a local street. So in 1974, we erected a barricade at the end of Via Del Rey. Decades passed, Prop 13 passed, home values went haywire, Skid Row became a wildfire. One day, those brown people, the descendants of this land, before a home was a thing with a price, said enough is enough, and it's not enough to just ask nice. They broke into one of those empty homes in the serene valley, attempting to give it new life. No, said CalTrans with a concrete fist. We'll bring in the sheriff and CHP if it comes to this. And like Chavez Ravine, they were carried away, limp-bodied, without a home to stay. Finally, Metro and CalTrans said that 710 was done, and a bill passed to get South Pasadena to sell the homes, SB 381. Make them affordable housing, said the spirit and letter of the law, but the homeowners did not find this proposition arousing. Nonprofits could not take care of historic homes, as they saw. City Hall, CalTrans, homeowners, the courts, the state, the web of confusion can make you irate. But one day, far from now, they will sing a song about a freeway fight in a wealthy town, about who could lay their head when the sun goes down. So on behalf of the craftsman bungalows and the smooth Arroyo Seco stones, what really gives a neighborhood character are those who call it home. Thank you, and I would just like to support the option that would sell to nonprofits, affordable housing providers that prioritize low and very low income renters. Thank you.
Wow, it's a hard follow of that. I don't really have a poem. That was amazing. My name is Ilana Mann. I am one of the founders of the Anti-Racist Committee of South Pasadena. I really loved hearing a commitment to following the law, and I hope that the city will do that. I also really was heartened by hearing a commitment to making more affordable housing in South Pasadena. And I mean, I know there is a lot of vocal people that want to keep affordable housing from being built, and they've been really successful here. And that's just increased inequality in our city and maintained the status quo. And the fact of the matter is that we are in a housing crisis, an affordable housing crisis, and everybody needs to chip in. It's just like what needs to happen in order for us to just take care of each other. I think that we've learned from the pandemic that we're tied together. We are dependent on one another. And so I just want to echo what other people are saying, that I really support building multifamily affordable housing on these units. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Hi, I'm Victoria Patterson, and thank you everyone for holding this, and kudos on that poem, man. First of all, I'm a 25, 30-year CalTrans tenant, and I was told I was going to get a solicitation letter finally. Oh, years and years I've been waiting in the summer. I'm sorry, I'm nervous, and have yet to. It's just crickets again. So excuse my skepticism. My family and I realize the irony that I wouldn't live here if it weren't for you, so I appreciate your fighting on behalf, but at the same time, I'm low income, and I want other people to have an opportunity to live in a city that I love. Me and my family have been CalTrans tenants for close to 30 years. I've raised 2 sons here. We have been promised countless times by the Department of Transportation, one day you'll own your home. It's all haphazard and nonsensical. For instance, my neighbor was able to buy her home finally years ago, but we were told, whoops, you're in the line of the freeway. What freeway? If you're wondering what it's like to rent from CalTrans, I describe it as like you're renting from the DMV with a touch of the mafia mixed in. That's how I describe it. Now the South Pasadena City Council and the South Pasadena Preservation Fund, politically savvy insiders, I've learned, tell me and my family, oh, we're on your side. That's why we want to pass this bill. But it's more of the same. The goal is to keep the so-called undesirables out and house prices up. Recently, just around the corner from my home, a CalTrans house had squatters. The police came, get out, all the drama. It's awful. So many deserving people, so-called undesirables, could benefit, yet we're paying for all this security to keep the people out. My family has become accustomed to being told our home it's always just out of reach, just out of reach. You can own it someday. Some years I think, oh God, we make too much. Some years, oh God, we're definitely poor this year. Maybe we'll qualify this year. It doesn't matter because we never get it. I'd like to believe that the city values its current CalTrans tenants, the low-income variety, like me at times, sometimes moderate, sometimes low income. But I'm skeptical, as you can tell, and I want to expect better for the future, and that you'll do what's right. Thanks. Thank you, Ms. Patterson. Next speaker.
Hi, my name's Brent Hoover. I was a tenant of South Pasadena. In 2004, I was forced out of the city. I couldn't afford to live in the city anymore. I'm concerned with the way these houses are going to be sold. I'd like to come back and live in the city. I grew up here, and I'd like an opportunity as well to be able to come back here. I was hoping to hear something around like more organizations coming in to help people afford these homes. I know they're out there. They've been used in other states, and they're available. And I was hoping you would consider those to help people like me. I'm a father, but I don't think I can qualify for these homes. We've just been through a pandemic. A lot of us have lost our jobs. And, you know, some people here that haven't spoken today, they may not be able to qualify for these homes as well, but I'm hoping at some point they'll get up and talk and, you know, let you guys know that they want an opportunity as well. And I'm hoping our city council makes the right decision and finally do something right in their career and, you know, really take a look at, you know, families like mine that need a home. You have an opportunity to do something right here, and I hope you can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Julie Stern. I'm a resident on a street that's affected by these CalTrans homes, and I just want to bust a couple myths. This may not be true for all 20 homes in the corridor, but it's certainly true in our neighborhood. For example, there's a CalTrans home, 901 Bonita. It's a 2,300 square foot lot. The house on that lot is 1,100 square feet. It's ridiculous to think that you can split that house in two and put two families into 500 square foot spaces. I'm not opposed to it, but the reality is, who's gonna bring a family in to live in a 500 square foot house? These are 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses. And it's true for our neighborhood, the lots are very tiny. Our neighborhood was developed as like a summer cottage neighborhood. The first house was built by Gillette, and these were summer cottages. Some of the houses are 700 square feet, 800 square feet, so all these folks who think, oh, we can just tear these 800 square foot houses down and I don't know what, build a 20 apartments on that lot, it's fantasy land. It's just not gonna happen. And I can tell you from experience, because we have 2 empty lots on our, well, technically 3 empty lots on our street. One has been vacant for 20 years because they can't build on it. It's on a sheer hillside, and the only size house that can fit on that lot is 800 square feet, and no developer in their right mind, or even someone with some money, is gonna build an 800 square foot, you know, spend $300,000 or $400,000 to build an 800 square foot house. That's just reality in our specific neighborhood. Again, I'm not speaking to all these other homes. It may be a different situation with some of these properties. And so now I'm living on a street with 3 vacant lots that no one wants to build on. And, you know, what I'm concerned about is there's one house nearby that looks like it's ready to come off the hillside. It's so dilapidated that if we have a major earthquake, that thing is coming down. But it's a very small lot, and if you sell that house to a developer, even if it's a low-income housing developer, they still want to make money. They're not going to be able to make money on these things. So I'm just saying, some of you guys are in fantasy land.
Thank you for your comments. Looks like we have one more speaker.
I just have a question. My name is Jennifer, and I'm a CalTrans tenant. And back in 2016, I was given a letter from CalTrans saying they were going to offer the house to me for sale. And I would be working with Veteran Realty and everything. So in 2017, when they hadn't given me a price yet, and I was willing to buy and wanted to buy right away, they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. Because I said, well, prices are going up, and I'm concerned about, you know, it getting out of my availability, you know, affordability. And so they said, don't worry, they will offer it to you at the 2016 prices. Well, that wasn't the case. So last year, I got a letter saying, you know, oh, we were going to sell it now, and they gave me a price, and then they said, but we have to reevaluate this, and it went at $800,000. It was a lot of money, you know. So, and during that time, in the last 5 years, I've been laid off of my job and everything, and so I guess I'm wondering, like, so when are these houses going to be? I know people have asked this, but it is kind of frustrating when I could have moved out and bought something else, but because I was told they would offer it to me at the 2016 prices, I stayed in that house, you know. And now, like I said, it's completely out of my control as far as the price that they want now. They want over $2 million for this house. So now what happens? Like, I guess my question is, so you're saying that you're going to offer these houses for sale. I was in phase one. I'm not in phase one anymore. It's a historic house. So it would be nice to get some kind of idea as to when you're going to offer these back up.
Thank you. And Ed, do you have her contact information? We'd be happy to get that for you. Okay.
It's a very complex. Phase one, because of various reasons, halted where it did. We were able to sell a few properties. We sold properties to Pasadena. So that rolled into new legislation, new regulations, right. So I do have your contact information. I will call you directly. And I can give you some more information because we are evaluating all those. We're evaluating how do we kind of reset or come back to the individuals such as you, or how do we evaluate moving forward? So we do have some ideas, but as you imagine, we want to be consistent, we want to be fair, we want to make sure that any path we take is the path we remain on. And so it comes up, you know, your property is a topic that comes up. I bring it up all the time. We need to move forward. We need to figure this out because we're in it now. I mean, I know there's a lot of skepticism. I know there's a lot. I've done my best to kind of bring us back. I can't undo what's happened before. All I can do is stand by my word, move things forward. I've taken all your comments, all your questions. I made some notes. I've been talking about expanding our communication to those tenants who are waiting, how we can do that without setting it so far away that it just doesn't seem attainable. So I'm working on how can we message where someone has an idea of where they are, when they can expect. As you can imagine, it will take a little while. We have over 300 tenants along the corridor. It's a lot, but we are moving forward. I give you my word. The process is happening. For some people, call VRG, call our sales process, or our hotline, and we can take that information, get back. We always return those calls, and then I will do my best to give information that works for specific people. Because everybody has their own specific situation. So it's really hard for me to, and it seems like I'm dancing around, but I just want to keep it in general, kind of a high level look, because when we get into the specifics of certain tenants and certain properties, it could go sideways with, well, that person, or I heard this, and I don't want to put anybody in that position. But I do want to keep the communication open. I want you to reach out. I want you to engage because we want to engage. And this is the first step in doing that. So thank you.
So, Mr. Francis, I know that you engage one-on-one with a lot of these tenants, but let me just say from my perspective, we have a number of tenants who were in a sales process and then it didn't go forward. It's not just the current speaker. So it would be my wish that CalTrans would take a very serious look at re-engaging a process that they terminated, because there's a lot of feelings that it was unfair for them to be in a process that unilaterally was terminated. I know you said there's legal requirements, but if there is a way that you can hear from the city, from a number of these tenants whose process was terminated and re-engaged at new fair market values, you can stay with the process you created. That would be, I would think, a very fair due process argument that we could make, and we would hope CalTrans would stay with that.
Yeah, I will commit to having those conversations and working through that. And we can set up focus meetings, really kind of get into those specifics and see what we can come up with for solutions.
It might just start by saying, let's look at whether we properly disengaged, whether we can re-engage with all that was going on back then. Because you went through a waterfall. And when it got to these current tenants, they were in line at the right place during the waterfall, and then it stopped. So it didn't feel fair to them. They've expressed that to me. I'm just going to convey that to you in public. Sorry to put you on the spot. But I do think the argument is very important to make, and it shouldn't be just resolved one-on-one. We would like to have sort of a broad approach to these tenants.
Fair enough. I'll take that back.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for participating, for sticking with us. It is now 7:12. This concludes tonight's community meeting. Please, if you'd like updates, additional information, please make sure that we have your contact information, and we will keep you apprised of future community meetings and our next steps. Thank you.